Good night.
Hello, good night.
Good night to our guests. Good night to our viewers. Welcome to Legalize this 13th day of July, 2025. Tonight we are going to look at the topic of local government. The topic is pegged as the importance and benefits of people's participation in the process of governance and why non-compliance with constitutional and statutory mandates for such people's participation in Grenada. Tonight we have with us Attorney at Law George Pride, experienced attorney at law, and a former politician, a former minister in Grenada, Minister of Government. And we also have with us Dr. DeCoteau, an attorney at law called to the bar in Grenada, in England and Wales, in St. Kitts and Nevis and in St. Vincent. She is the head of the law firm EMA Solutions. Her doctoral thesis was titled Corruption in Caribbean Politics, Examining Cultural Tolerance. We also expect to have with Raphael Pablo Paul, an experienced community activist in particular on the west side of Grenada, being St. John's and St. Mark's. Tonight I am alone because my co-host has another appointment and is unavailable. Good night, George. Good night, Don.
Good evening.
Yep. Pleasant evening to you, my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Ewart.
That already indicates a cultural difference because I always say to folks, once the sun goes down in Grenada, it's night.
I see.
In other places, it's up to 9 o'clock you refer to it as evening. But welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much. Pleasant evening to all, and thank you for having us.
Okay, good. Well, as promised, before we actually get into the subject matter for tonight, there is this issue that is being discussed in the public regarding a proposed amendment to the Oath of Allegiance. I just wanted to invite each of you to comment. You can comment on there are basically two issues, as I understand it. The first one being whether the oath should be changed, and if so, why? And secondly, whether, and both of you being lawyers, you may want to say something on that, whether the oath can be changed without a referendum. So, using the often used phrase, ladies first, Sister Donna, I will invite you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, good evening again. Good evening again. Well, yes, so an interesting topic I know currently here in Grenada regarding the Oath of Allegiance. So the first thing I must say, and in regards to, let me just set my view first in regards to my positionality on this. You see, my position is that, you know, if we're going to change the oath, I think that's a halfway house and a halfway measure. You know, if we are going to, you know, we either move to a republic, you know, in its entirety, and we know the challenges that, you know, one may have in order to achieve that, or, you know, we stick with the status quo. You know, removing the oath toward the allegiance, to me, really is just a box exercise, of some of of what the bigger issue and what I believe is the bigger objective in changing an oath. That would be the start to reaching the wider objective, and that's just my personal view. In regards to where things sit constitutionally, and the first thing I'm going to say on the record, I am not a constitutional lawyer. We have our learned colleagues on the ground, including, dare I say, Mr. Prime, Mr. Ferguson, and I dare stay Dr. Francis Alexis, King's Counsel. Now, having looked at this in the topic, and it coming up quite recently and continue to come to be in the mainstream public domain. How I'm seeing this is that it is possible. I must say I do agree with Dr. Alexis' position in relation to this. That it is possible to move to a oath of allegiance without needing a constitution, because it's not entrenched in the constitution per se. So I think it was really a 2/3 majority as opposed to a referendum overall if it needs to be achieved. And that's how I'm reading it. So I do think it is possible. I think the issue, though, in the Caribbean, and I'm involved in some projects in other parts of the Caribbean where issues around constitution come up for a number of reasons. But I think one of the things we have to remember, it's not just about whether it's entrenched in the constitution, whether we need a 2/3 majority, or whether we need a referendum. I think, yes, that is important, but I think critically, and I think this is where a lot of the what a lot of the politicians have at the forefront is that you have to, no matter what, you still have to bring the hearts and minds of the people to achieve the objective, and achieve the objective in a way that satisfies the masses. And I say that because even if it's that we can achieve it through a 2/3 majority, you still have to bring the masses on board, and the people on board, and rightfully so. For me, it's about the education behind that to achieve the objective, if that's the way government feels that we need to go.
Okay. I'll ask you one or two questions after George.
Absolutely.
George makes his contribution on this issue.
Well, I too want to extend my gratitude for having given the opportunity to appear on this program this evening. I believe that the organizers and the initiators of this program needs high commendation, and of course the topics that are being addressed, certainly the one that you've just identified, are current. And I say current in the sense that for decades the issue of constitutional reform, I would say, has been the subject of major discussions throughout Grenada and certainly in the region. So constitutional reform is not a null thing, so to speak. I am aware, and of course I'm grateful to you, Ewart, on some of the papers that you have presented touching and concerning these issues. It is now widely established that there have been a number of attempts towards constitutional reform. Needless to mention the commissions that have been set up. Each of them really has produced a report with the view of addressing this issue of fundamental change to the Constitution. So even if, as my colleague and Don is making the point, that one appears to look in its entirety to the subject matter. I believe I was within a particular administration, as you point out, Ewart, that if you want to call it that, the Tillman Thomas National Democratic Congress government had been addressing the issue of constitutional reform, and certainly the view was to deal with the issue of the Republican. That didn't work because I believe we were not in government long enough. So Don is not alone by speaking about the issue about republicanism. Of course, Dr. Alexis did say to you that half a loaf is better than no loaf. We had to start someplace, as you yourself had indicated. And of course, it is true. The issue which seems to be preoccupying the minds of advocates and certainly constitutional scholars as it relates to this constitutional reform, speaking particularly of Grenada, and no doubt throughout the wider Caribbean, has to be dealing with the amending procedure contained in Section 39 of our Constitution. Sudan is absolutely right. This two-thirds of the voters in a referendum is the, if you want to call it, the fly in the ointment that making this thing seem as an insurmountable challenge.
Yeah.
And I think these exercises that are now being addressed is an excellent opportunity for us to address this thing once and for all. And I agree with her fully. We need all the stakeholders on board in an issue of this nature, not some, and this is a particular exercise. It seems to me, and again, Don had made the point, that there ought to be a distinguishing feature, and that may well be where the confusion lies. There seems to be a distinguishing feature between what I think my dear brother you would call ordinary entrenched provision and deeply entrenched provision in the Constitution. If we capture those essential distinctions, I think half of the job will be completed. Certainly the issue as to whether we should have change, I don't think anybody now in our past, certainly of our era, is going to say that the Constitution ought not to be amended, changed, republic, alien, allegiance being changed, whatever it is. Change is not what I believe the debate is about. May well be how far we should go. Should we just start off with the allegiance? And I believe to start with the allegiance is an excellent starting point. Why the arguments have been advanced thoroughly. It is not something that we now tinkering with. Again, the paper that I have seen and read, which speaks to one of Brother Layne's own contribution.
George, I don't want to interrupt you, but can you just adjust the camera so that you can, yes, because
Are you seeing me now? Is it
yes,
better?
we see you, but if you can look, the audience need to see your face directly.
Are you seeing me now?
Yes, we see you.
Is that better?
Yes, but if you are go to your right, yes, your right a bit. Yes, that's better. Yes, you can continue. Yes, that's far better. You are muted though. You need to unmute.
Right.
Yes,
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Proceed, yes.
I was just barely coming to the conclusion now, actually, in my opening remarks. I was about to say, yes, certainly change is regarded. Why change is regarded, I think, is definitely a straightforward answer. It is a short and dry case that to have the Constitution since 1974, as old as it is, and there have never been any fundamental change, let alone tinkering with it. In like manner, the amount of attempts to address the reform is as old as the Constitution itself. So I don't think that there is any issue as to why that should be. It is ripe, in my view, eminently ready, and the ground is perfected for us to move on. How far we go is debatable. Without referendum, and again, I think referendum and made the point between the distinction. So once we understand that there are provisions in the Constitution that does not require referendum status, as distinct from those that are, then I think we can begin to see the light. And I welcome this evening's proceeding and look forward to participating actively as I can.
Yes.
Yes. Don, my question was, how do you respond to those who say that, to them in particular, given the history of our countries, the history of the Caribbean, the history of slavery, and in this era of reparations, that it doesn't sit well on the chest having to pledge allegiance to King Charles III, his heirs and successors. It doesn't sit well having to pledge allegiance to a symbol that represents the enslaved our people.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
Okay, that's a very good question, and I say this for a number of reasons. So, first of all, you mentioned in the introduction, in regards to my bio, my doctoral research was looking at corruption in Caribbean politics, examining cultural tolerance. Now, one thing I will say about my research is that what it does in examining that cultural tolerance is really chart our 500-year colonial brutal history, as I say, which I think is fundamentally important when looking at, and what my research definitely establishes is fundamental when looking at modern day corruption in the Caribbean. Yeah. And I say that because as part of, the question that you're asking, for me in responding, it really is about, first of all, not just, we speak a lot about our 500-year, colonial history and the impact, yes, but really it's about that deep-rooted understanding, yes, and that's that deep-rooted understanding, as we know, not just in regards to the brutality, of our ancestors, but it's also about the economic impact, yes, that to date we cannot remove ourselves from. Yes, and I'm not going to go into the granular detail on that. Maybe that's another conversation. But why this is important in regards to answering your question is that, look, if we are to continue, yes, swearing allegiance to the monarch in 2025, yes, following our 500-year history, following our 51-year, dare I say, to bring it more relevant to our 51-year of independence, yeah, then what we really have to do is, if it's that we want to keep this, then we have to say, okay, then, so what are the benefits in doing so? Yes? And whether the benefits outweigh, the other factors. Now, what I do know, there's been numerous research, numerous papers, and more recently, an actual quantum exercise on what the consequence of our brutal history has been, yes, and the cost of that in regards to quantifying, putting some quantification on it in regards to reparation. So, I know it's a sensitive area. I do believe that the majority of Caribbean people, and I'm not just going to say Grenada, I say Caribbean people, are very much, for reparation for a number of reasons, including those that I'm just factoring and capturing or just highlighting at this stage. But I think that the question is, tell me what the benefits are, if we are to continue swearing our allegiance. Tell me what the benefits are if we as lawyers, have to continue, I dare say, appearing in, all kind of matters, be it, civil or criminal, robed and, swearing allegiance, our witnesses swearing on oaths and what have you. Tell me, is this current? Is it relevant? Or do we really need to understand ourselves as Caribbean people?
You spoke about I don't know if I understood you. You said there could be some negatives in terms of changing the oath. You say that?
Say that again, sorry?
Were you saying that there could be some negatives if we are to change the oath and we have to weigh off?
No, not at all. No, I mean, listen, what I'm saying is, my position is, as I said at the beginning, if we're going to, I've seen, for me, the oath is a halfway house. If we're going to do this thing, my view is that we go all the way. But that's just my personal view. Yeah. Okay. But notwithstanding that, yes, what I'm saying is we have to really understand why in this 2025 year, 500 and plus years from, the legacy of the shackles commencing, 51 years after independence here in Grenada, why are we continuing to swear the allegiance?
Because the Constitution says so.
That's what I'm so my thing is, absolutely, we have to now, factor in, our histories, to really understand why is it today that we are still swearing allegiance to the monarch. That's the point I'm making. So, and let me be clear. You see, my answer is that because of my research, and what, as I say, it's not my research in regards to some of the, dare I say, not just what we know that is well written, but in regards to, corruption being introduced by, our colonial masters and the impacts that has today. I'm just using that and bringing that to the table, that to say, look, it really is a mess that we have to take control of our own destiny. And if we're going to do that, one way psychologically of doing that is to remove, this need to swear our allegiance to the monarch.
All right, so you're saying, tell me if I'm correct, that you're not against it, but it is not sufficient.
No, I think you're reading me wrong. What I'm saying is that the time is nigh.
Okay, I get
you. But what I'm saying is, for me, it's because of, all, the issues that are on the table that we speak about, daily. But it's also, for me, it goes deeper than that.
Yeah, I understand. I get you.
Excellent.
All our parties, even those who are promoted and are protagonists for the changing of the oath recognize that it is a small step, but considered a significant one in terms of, I've heard the quote from Bob Marley's song regularly, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, also from Marcus Garvey. One other thing I want to raise, a political scientist on this program said this, because you raised the issue of reparations. I think I raised it.
Yeah.
You commented that we have a situation where we are calling on the British, first and foremost, because we are British colonies in the main, to do certain things so as to make right, repair. But
Yep.
we are not willing ourselves to do things that we can do to make right. In that context, he was speaking about the oath of allegiance and even the wider issue of removing the monarch as the head of state and instituting republics in this region here. And he was saying that those are things which are for our people to do. Those are things which are our obligation and responsibility. We're not doing that, but we call it upon others to, in effect, dish out hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to make right. How do you respond to that?
Well, as I said before, I think one of the things is that, look, if we are to make the step in regards to, moving towards, and let me just, and again, this is my positionality on this, in regards to eventually moving to a referendum. Yeah, we have to start getting it into the psyche of our people. And one of the ways to do that, I suppose, is to start with, dare I say, removing our allegiance accordingly to swear to the monarch. I think that is critical. But you see, we can't rely on others to do it for us. We as a Caribbean people have to take proactive steps. And sometimes when doing that, it means taking bold steps. But until we do that, unfortunately, relying on others to put right what we want put right, really, we're shortchanging ourselves. So that's what I would say there. We have to take the lead. We have to take a lead, and we have to take a stance, and we have to take a position. And, and I think the issue is, listen, my thing is, one of the things I get frustrated on in the Caribbean per se is that we talk and we talk and we talk until the cows come home. We're going to get on shortly to talking about local government, and dare I say, under the Tillman Thomas government, Mr. Prime here, that's the first paper I wrote for the then NDC administration on local government, and yet look, here we are today. So we talk and we talk because I think that gives us a level of comfort, in a tick box exercise. But we have to do better as a people. We have to be proactive. We have to be measurable in our outcomes, because otherwise the status quo continues.
Okay, so that's a nice platform for the segue into tonight's topic on local government. For me, it's maybe about 20 years ago, maybe just a bit less, or maybe a bit more. I recognize that there is actually a legal framework in Grenada, separated apart from what is in the Constitution, for local governments throughout the country. And I was able to see something from you, George, which indicates that there's a long history of local government, a long history of people's participation at different levels in Grenada. So strictly speaking, it's not something new for us here. So I don't know if you just want to briefly, George, just take us through that. And we'll also ask the question, why is it of importance that you have machinery or system of local government?
Good. Well, thank you again. Maybe the starting point I can begin with, if I may, is that there is a paper prepared called the Regional Policy and Cooperative Framework on Local Governance and Local Democracy in the Caribbean. So the picture is a wider picture, which was prepared by the technical working group of one of the conferences that I attended. And on page 19 of that paper.
And that paper was prepared when? What year?
It was prepared December 7, 2008 at the Caribbean Forum of Local Government Ministers, Rose Hill Resort and Country Club, Montego Bay, Jamaica. So I want to start off with that brief quotation from that document. And it says, for over 100 years, Grenada had a formal local government system. Over 100 years. However, it was abolished and its functions were transferred to a committee on local government. This was then replaced by a new structure which lasted for the period 1979 to 1983. And we know what that period was.
Right.
Ideal, rapid, instinctive people's participation. Currently, there is no existing elected local government system in Grenada, sadly. But the government, meaning the National Democratic Congress government 2008, has initiated steps towards reintroducing local government in the islands of Carriacou and Petit Martinique as mandated by the Constitution. I think that is a classic place to start when we speak comparatively within the region. So, to begin with, that is really where we are. And I mean, maybe I should start off with Don's statement because I've always reminded of this standard cliche. You never build reputation on what you're going to do. You have to do it. You can't keep saying you're going to do something and you're going to do something. You wouldn't get it done that way. All that happens is that we get older. If you keep saying that you're going to do something and you're going to do something. I had written a paper sometime in 2022 where I examined the issue of local government, whether it was wishful thinking or a reality. To my mind, that is the pith and substance of the historical exercise. And so I started out by way of an historical background, citing, of course, what we have begun with. District Council, 1920 and thereabout in Grenada, there were vibrant local government practice. District boards were set up in each of the parishes. The members were elected by, in those days, unfortunately, property owners.
Mm-hmm.
The funding was essentially done by the state. As it relates to Carriacou, which was not left out, the district commissioner was the one who was appointed to deal with the Carriacou issues. As luck would have it, in 1969, the late Sir Eric Matthew Gary, for good or for ill, disbanded the local government system on the attainment of internal self-government from Britain. So when we got that so-called instrument, self-government, it felt that maybe one of the things that should take place is, well, let's get rid of this local government, because we now could speak for ourselves. In the wake of that, the 1974 Constitution, after the internal self-government issue was provoked by Britain, Section 107, subsection 1 speaks there forcefully, Council for Carriacou and Petit-Martinique. So there is no accident. Section 107.2 said what must characterize the membership and functions of this so-called council.
So in other words, the Constitution itself requires that there must be local governments in Carriacou and Petit-Martinique.
Precisely. In other words, we have almost a constitutional imperative.
Right, but in terms of how, in terms of the membership and the functions, it was left up to the Parliament.
Precisely.
To
devise the methodology as to how this should take place. As also indicated in the historical epoch between 1974 and 1979, if you want to take now periods that we can bite off and identify with, there was no implementation, as you know, saying, no implementation of Section 107. Nevertheless, 1979, upon the ascent into office of the People's Revolutionary Government, one of the first steps that were taken in an attempt to address this issue of insularity, of division, of neglect, the PRG appointed a creature called the Secretary of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique Affairs, whose responsibility in the main was to manage the affairs, and the introduction of zonal and parish councils were established throughout the state. So even at that period, the issue of people's participation, people's taking authorship of their local communities and devising means that are going to conduct their daily lives were already a feature that we have lost for whatever reasons. 1983 to 1990, that period too is crucial, because in 1990 came the advent of the National Democratic Congress. Indeed, Carriacou and Petit-Martinique was managed almost single-handedly by the Prime Minister in those days. The Ministry of Local Government, and that takes in consideration Ewart's point, the general state. The Ministry of Local Government was established with a particular mandate to re-establish local government. So while the Constitution gave the imperative for doing that, the National Democratic Congress, under the tutelage of Nicholas Brafitt, as he then was, they set up this Ministry of Local Government. And it is no secret that the next step came in 1995, maybe just at the time they were vacating office because they didn't go beyond that period. The drafting of the Carriacou and Petit-Martinique County Council Act number 20 of 1995 came into existence. And interestingly, there were two acts passed in that period. And for whatever reason, they call the one that is earlier in time Act number 16. Act number 16 of 1995, also the District Councils Act. So we had two acts. The County Council Act number 20 of 1995, that received the royal assent on the 4th of April, 1995. And at the very next day, the 5th of April, 1995, Act number 16, the District Council Act, came to and was assented to. So in a nutshell, we start to see the making of the historical epoch unfolding in the context of local government and the establishment. Now, in 1997, there was some confusion as to whether the establishment of the Ministry of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique Affairs would have been the instrument to kick off the local government impetus. But it was very clear as soon as that ministry came into being that it could not have satisfied the constitutional mandate for the work of the council. They were two separate institutions, and indeed the Constitution contemplates a separate creature and body of persons to deal with the issue of the council.
Right.
In July of yeah, you were saying something?
Well, just complete, because I was going to
let me
ask.
complete it. In July of 2008, the then Prime Minister Tillman Thomas had initiated the steps of introducing local government in the islands of Carriacou and Petit-Martinique as required by the Constitution. That finally, I want to just give a brief point on that issue, which was mentioned before, because in that particular paper, let me just share it with you as we get involved in the meat of the substance of this paper. This was one of the country strategy that came about as a result of what was referred to as the NGO's blueprint. And in that paper, it indicated the following key steps, which coincide with the point I was just making about the Tillman Thomas government. And it says, notwithstanding that there is no local government in Grenada, though local government is mandated in the Constitution, it was never implemented. And though the District Council Act of 1995 was passed in the Parliament, it was never, ever put into practice. This had led to the feelings of neglect and lack of consultation and representation in most of the communities, particularly Carriacou and Petit-Martinique.
Okay.
The current government, nevertheless, has committed to be fulfilling the constitutional provision and had embarked on a path of local government reform. The government's new local government reform bill was to be tabled in Parliament very soon. In fact, the current efforts that is indicated shows that there ought to have been, by 2012, after the passage of the Carriacou and Petit-Martinique Council Act, some major inputs. So when Don speaks about nothing is done, we get the impression that while we were moving speedily, like there were certain I wouldn't say legal impediments, they're legal issues that should be addressed to make this thing happen. But it didn't happen. So the question, no doubt, as the paper today is indicating, we need to examine what happened along the steps. What ought to be our next steps in light of where we are.
Because
So
in a sense,
yeah,
one can say that the Constitution has spoken, the Parliament has spoken, but yet for all nothing has been done. And I just want to, and Don, I want you to comment on this here. There's
Yes.
a question here. The question is, do we need more politicians and more government for a population of 112,000 people? Also,
Right.
what will the funding model for local government in Carriacou and Grenada look like? And the person suggested that perhaps the approach should be to restructure central government with the aim of more effective governance and the provision of services that is more nimble and efficacious.
Yes.
So I want you to comment on this because
Okay, so what I'm going to start off with the latter part of the last part of that question, because I may just be agreeing with the, agreeing with the position in regards to destructuring central government, because I just think the West Middle model of politics anyway, and central government in small islands with small populations really comes with a number of problems, and so I may just agree with that. Notwithstanding, I think, look, the issue is, yes, we do need politicians, notwithstanding that, but do we? For me, it's not just the issue of do we need the politicians. I think in regards to local government, I think what we need to do, and what is critical, especially as we know this NDC administration has committed to moving this forward. So for me, yes, it really is about now, going out there to the grassroots, engaging in meaningful dialogue and consultation to come up with what the best model is for Carriacou and Petit Martinique in regards to local government. Yes, because let me tell you, there are many models. Yes, you can look at various models, because at the end of the day, remember, local government is about delegating, certain, dare I say, powers or decision making, not necessarily powers, but decision making down to the local level. Yes, in this case, being Carriacou and Petit Martinique, it would be, I would say, down even to our local villages. So it's really about the model that needs to be put in place to achieve that objective. Yes. And my thing is, whilst we are waiting for bills to go before Parliament and, to get first reading, second reading, we already have the go ahead. So for me, this is a delay tactic, a delay, not necessarily a tactic, a delay that I don't necessarily think is, warranted. Really, where we should be going is to the grassroots, meaningful engagement to establish what local government looks like, with the support of, dare I say, advisors who can, share with them various models in regards to what that looks like that's right for them. Because let me tell you something. If we come and we impose various models, without that dialogue and engagement, it is not going to work. Yes, we have to bring our communities on board with us, and the sooner we get to we get to that position, the better for all. But we have to remove ourselves again from another conversation. We need things that is tangible. So that's what I would say in regards to that first point. Yeah, politicians are needed, especially in regards to, that Westminster model where we are, centralized government where we are. But what I'm saying is if it is that we are to delegate some of the decision making, let's identify what it is that we are going to delegate down. How is that then going to be managed? Who is going to be accountable? What do those accountability streams look like? Then what are the benefits that we can share with our stakeholders who may, I don't even know if, do we have any tangible data that says that, the residents of Carriacou and Petite Martinique are for or against a local government? Do we have any empirical data? You see, so I think we've got some work to do, but let's get to that. Let's now cross that fence and get to a position where, our citizens can see that we are engaging with a view to moving this forward, as opposed to being stuck at this legislative stage that, to me, I'm not even quite sure needs to really be the stage where we're at.
I think the point is, Don, while you speak of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and I think there's a obvious case, and besides an obvious case, there's a constitutional mandate.
Right.
But what I think the person who posted the comment is really saying, isn't Grenada, certainly the mainland, basically one big local government? Can it function in that way?
Can you say the latter part? I missed the latter part of the question.
Grenada, isn't Grenada, certainly the mainland, one big local government? Can it function in that way? Is asking whether
No. Let me be clear. I'm just mentioning Carriacou and Petite Martinique, but let me tell you, the local government model, a local government system can function, across, dare I say, any country. You understand? Grenada being 100 with a population of 115,000 or thereabouts. There is no reason why we cannot have a local government across the various parishes, across the various villages. No reason at all. It does not have to be specific to Carriacou and Petite Martinique. And you see, and the thing is, what we have to remember is that when you look at local government, and some of those benefits of what it brings in regards to that, taking that local decision making, down to our local communities that, who best know their community and know their villages, best know the needs and wants of their villages and communities, can be the spokesperson through where they can be a spokesperson through a democratic process, by way of an example. So there is no reason whatsoever why a local government in Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique just needs to focus on Carriacou and Petite Martinique. It can be across the Tri-Island state wholesomely.
Well, if I may, Ewart, I think you put your finger on the matter that has already received tacit approval, not only the last Congress government, but in one of your papers, you've spoken heavily on the issue of Professor McIntosh. Professor McIntosh, and incidentally, my dear colleague, had done an initial response. I speak to now my dear friend Don, to the paper that he had prepared. I work with both of them, but I want to share with you precisely the issue you just raised, and no doubt what Don is saying. Professor McIntosh contemplates that his paper is a paper that was submitted to my good self, the Honorable George Prime, then Minister of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. The paper is headed Promoting Deliberate and Participatory Democracy. He went on to say the case for the establishment of a parish council, first of all for Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and then for a system of parish councils for Grenada as a whole.
Mhm.
So he was not just Carriacou in its specific concept. He contemplates that this paper, which speaks to participatory democracy, is wider than us in Carriacou. And that paper, to my mind, is one that not only addresses the issue as to the geographical separation. In fact, he has a particular way that he writes in his opening salvo on this paper. And if you permit me just to read a few lines out of it. Professor McIntosh, as he then was, indicate that the independent sovereign state of Grenada is in reality a tri-island state of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. So he wasn't just speaking only of Carriacou and Petit
Cool.
Martinique. The 1973 independent constitution, he says, it provides the point that we've been going on, and he speaks about that. Council shall be of such membership and function that Parliament may prescribe. However, it is herein submitted that the issue of local government for Carriacou and Petit Martinique must be considered in the light of the possible adoption of a system of local government throughout the entire state.
Right.
So it was not singular to Carriacou. And I'm happy that you're bringing this openly into the discussion, whether the talk box said so or not. Clearly, the mandate is there, but let us not forget that once we go in Carriacou and Petit Martinique route, then the rest of the state must come in, because what that is supposed to be doing for us, and again, Don has spoken widely on it, local government really is putting governance in the hands of the people, in a manner of speaking. In reality, it is one that we need, quite apart from the issue of funding, which seems to be one of the pitfalls. If it is to be real at all, we have to deal as, and then somebody might say something like the revolution, we have to unleash the power of the people. The people had to take ownership of this whole process. And so, even from the point of view of recognizing that not every administration, luckily for us, and I like to make the point, I was criticized from some of my own colleagues at one stage when the new National Party, and strange enough, in both manifestos of the 2008 election, both parties had spoken to local government. They want to see local government for Carriacou and Petit Martinique and for the country. So if they want to see local government, party one want to see it, party two want to see it, what really is the pitfall in it not happening? You want it, I want it. And I recall even when the referenda were being put up, I went out actively participating in it, because not only was it a very current topic, but the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, in the issue that Don was raising in terms of empirical evidence, were rampant that we want to see we name on the passport. Put Carriacou and Petit Martinique on the name of the passport. When the referendum came, the rest is history.
Right.
Carriacou and
So
Petit Martinique.
that takes me to this question, George and Don. Because I get to say what happened with the referendum is that we became divided along party lines.
Precisely.
Right. Now, should we replicate that or discourage that at the community level? In other words, should the process at the level of the community replicate what takes place at the national level with 2 parties, 3 parties, whatever? Or should there be another system whereby people are aligned to local issues, to community issues?
Don, you go first.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first, Judge?
Yeah, let me say, and it is an issue I had canvassed a lot of times. Local government, local community, local issues. To my mind, those are not things that cut across party line. Party should never be a precedent in local government issues. If it is, then we can well say this may well have been one of the limitations of it not getting into play because it become a party issue. Well, when you go to dealing with the issues that are commonly done at local government, education doesn't wear no party hat. Health, health don't wear no party hat. You can tell somebody in a community if they need a standpipe. A government minister don't have to go to Mount Royal or come to Bolio in St. George to say, you need some standpipes here. These
Yeah, but
issues.
George, the difficulty with that is that the style of politics in the country, and not only now, but going back years, is politicians deliver services, benefits to constituents, and in return for that, they look for a vote.
Yes.
If you remove that and you just deal with it at the community level, right? What is left there for the
Politician.
the politicians, the national politicians, when election comes around? If you understand me.
No. You're making a crucial point, and one that we have to recognize. But I believe very strongly that that approach will continue to leave us in the doldrums because.
Sorry, let me make.
You break it up, Don. I don't know if you are not.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. You need to speak more in the back. Yeah.
I was just saying. I was going to say. I think you raise a very good question, Ewart. So the issue is, listen. The Caribbean politics is the model of politics in the Caribbean, including Grenada, is what I term, when you look at the boss machine politics and how politics works, in the communities, it's very much that, and it is very much about getting past goal come election day. Yes. So, and I think so. You pose a very good question around, therefore, are politicians and our government committed to, implementing a meaningful, realistic local government, or is it that it suits them to speak it and to talk it without necessarily going, the full 100 yards, as I would say? Or is it that what they may do, they may scratch the surface to put in, dare I say, a quasi or a mini local government? But I think you raise a very, very good point, because at the end of the day, some bold decisions, politicians, in Grenada, the government in Grenada, whether it's this administration, the next administration to come, when it comes down to local government, yes, and implementing a model that works, then there are going to be risks to them in regards to their their votes and how that works. But at the end of the day, is this not bigger than that? Is this not about the people and the community and what they need at a local level, to enhance their day-to-day lives in a meaningful way, which every politician speaks about, irrespective of what side of the fence you are on. It's about making, citizens' lives better. whether that's financially, whether that's, socially. And that's what local government model does. And I think the other thing that we have to remember about local government model that is, and what I should actually say is, before being a lawyer, I was, I was employed in local government. That was my first position many years ago, at London Borough of Lewisham. But more importantly, that position that I obtained was as a result, not just as a result of, finishing and obtaining my first degree, but it was a result of being a community activist at the local government level and being empowered, you understand, and being developed to put me into a position whereby I was able, following my first degree, being a sociologist, to obtain my first position in local government. And I think we forget that, it's not just about, what we are. You've got to look at the benefits holistically. So it's the benefits in regards to changing quality of lives, but it's also about empowering, upskilling individuals, community activists, so that they can then move on, and secure positions, within government, within, NGOs, etc., etc. So I think, we have to have some full and frank discussions about this. Is it that we're going to continue talking about local government and skirting around the parameters? Or is it that, we are going to implement this and see the benefits, the holistic benefits overall?
Okay, before we continue, I omitted to recognize the sponsors of the program at the outset, but let me just do so now. Gel Professional Solutions Inc., Gem FM carrying this program on FM radio out of Canada, and DeCoteau, Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
How much?
Okay, so yes, we're back. And let me just take two comments again from the chat. Lincoln Deputy is saying, great concept. Local government based on European models like London. If it happens, I hope it works. But at this point, it sounds like feel good, theoretical good talk. We're likely to end up with the same tribal politics at the local government level. How do you take the party politics out of the representatives? City of Toronto is supposed to be non-political. It's supposed to be non-political. When there's city election, the parties and the supporters align behind the various candidates. It then says that that's not a fair statement. The 2008 referendum took place when there was no opposition in Parliament, yet the people voted no. There is a refusal by the academics to accept that the people are aware of what is there and given the right opportunities to educate themselves on a particular topic, will make decisions that is in their best interest.
Yeah. That latter point, I totally agree. Yes, at the end of the day, it is about, education, as dialogue, engagement, meaningful consultation. I speak about meaningful consultation because, we can consult until the cows come home. Unless it's meaningful and we have an overall objective, then it's just another tick box exercise. But we have to and bring the people and the stakeholders on board if we are serious about it. Otherwise, if we're not serious about it, then that's fine. But let's then, stop, dare I say, wasting time and stick to the status quo. Because I think, our stakeholders hear so much about local government, local government, local government. Even with the current administration, what we now need, as I said, whilst we're sorting out the legislative element, let's get ourselves, as I say, fit and ready. So that means simultaneously, whilst we're doing work going through the legislative arm, let's start engaging our stakeholders and community so that no one's taken by surprise, but most importantly, so that they can start to see that, government is serious and wants to take this forward. And let us all understand what that means and what that looks like. And that means, dare I say, government, the AG, the Honourable Claudette Joseph, dare I say, giving us, the citizens, an understanding about what local government, is going to look like, whether it's going to be carte blanche across Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique, whether we're just going to start in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, or Petite Martinique and Carriacou, whatever. But we've got to do something, and I can understand why we are getting those comments, because at the end of the day, we have to give them a level of comfort, and they have to be assured. And at the moment, our stakeholders and citizens are not assured.
The only difficulty I face now, and in light of the point that Brother Layne is making, in light of our political history, and that is the pith and substance of this point, I don't believe that one can speak with any conviction that we are prepared to embrace the concept of full participation in the decision-making process at the level of the local community. That really is the pith and substance. Is it the case? Quite apart from what the politicians are saying, because it is true. Deputy's point is absolutely right. I serve in another system that tells me that these issues were not being canvassed that way, because we were convinced that if we're talking about full participation of people in the decision-making process, what governs the life, what touches the daily lives, are issues that should not be bantered around by somebody looking for a vote here and one looking for a vote there. Yes. Precisely, and I think that's the dilemma, really. Let's face it straight up. So again, the issue that Layne is making is crucial. If we are not going to say that we are actually serious about engaging people in the process of governing their daily lives, that governance must be placed in their hands, where you put up the infrastructure that you're talking about, Don, so that better forces can take authorship for it. Central government sees local government, in my view and from my experience, as cutting down on their power.
Yes.
It is not the issue of the impulse. The impulse. There is no limelight, in my view, when you speak about local government as compared with central government. So we in a particular position, and I think amidst all the odds, we still have to commend the Congress, because they're the ones started it in the first administration, speaking about local government. They continue now to speak about it in a way that maybe not fast enough, not stringent and cooperative enough. In fact, we think there's a lot more to be done. But whatever has been contemplated for the machinery to put it in place, I think it can be delayed much longer. To delay it much longer is going to
I think, George, that a lot of probably more thought has to be put into how do you ensure that the system that you put in the community does not divide the communities more. So that, for example, if one party controls a local government, people feel that the government is in power. The same government is in controls the central government. people feel that only certain supporters are receiving benefits, or if another party controls a local government different from the central government, then they feel they have been starved of benefits and resources.
Can I
Sorry, go ahead, though.
Yeah, go on, Don.
I want to say is this, yeah. You see, it's the word in the terminology, but you see what you're saying. A government, whether it's NDC, NMP, or whoever controls the local government. You see, that's why I think we're erring. Yeah, the local government, true local government, is controlled by the people. You see, I understand what you're saying in regards to, of course, in regards to, which government may be in power at any one time in regards to, how the local government machine therefore operates. But, true local government, is for the people, by the people, with the support of government.
Yeah.
So for example, should and I'm just throwing this out. I don't know what the answer is, but should people who hold membership or hold certain positions in the established political party, should they be disqualified from membership of community councils?
No. And not only I don't think they should be disqualified. The real point is, and I think the issue where we now seeing this view about whether it is a political party that conducts or carries the majority in this case, if you're going to be appointing people on local committees, are you're handpicking them as opposed to electing them?
Yes, that's the difference.
The issue to my mind that would cut across these party lines is that you put up your team. For example, it is contemplated Jericho has 11 polling divisions. If you say a polling division should be regarded now as one of your districts, if you identify whether it's NDP, NNP, whichever it is, and I am aware of certain as Don put it, empirical evidence that stultify the growth of the local government, because when those studies were done, really emerging in the communities where people were seen not to be supportive of the government. So we're not going to have local government if it is that the people who are going to emerge at the local level are anti the government in office. Now, once that features, it appears as if, well, we are appointing A and appointing. Put it in the local elections. Go into your community and canvass whether it's the NNP that is elected, whether it's the NDC that is elected. Groundnut sugar cake is groundnut sugar cake. You can't say you're going into the election because you're the NNP or NDC. It may happen, but I don't think that should be the operative consideration for these exercises. Otherwise, we will make it no further advancement in the process.
Absolutely. But that is the point. That's the point I'm making. In all seriousness, yeah, we understand, how, island politics operate. Yeah, and we understand that, politics in Grenada can be very tribal. Let's face it. We understand the boss machine, politics machine. Yeah, we get that. So, but what I would say is this, which is critical for government, critical for all of us to understand, critical for the stakeholders. Is it that we are prepared to understanding what we know and how politics operate and how our stakeholders operate? Are we prepared to go ahead and implement a form of local government? Or is it that we're not prepared government's not prepared to take the risk, and really this is an exercise that, is basically going to stall along the way? Now, either way, you know, Mr. Ewart, Mr. George Prime, my good self, we generally are okay, you know, generally. It's not about us, yes? True government is about, you know, as I said, that decision making at that local level. But someone has to make that call.
Yes, is in the experience of the trade union movement, for example, or other interest groups, maybe the Bar Association, but certainly the trade union movement. Is their experience useful in this context? In other words, you have trade union movements, and there's no question that the political parties seek to influence them. But I think more, they have been able to focus on the interests of the membership. Not to the complete exclusion of political interests, but certainly the dominant factor, the dominant driver of the positions being the interest of the membership. Would such experience be of any use and importance in terms of developing a model?
Well, listen, the trade unions are stakeholders, yeah, and I think anything that's going to assist in getting, you know, because for me, I am a data person, yeah. I like evidence before me, and my concern is, I don't think we have that. I don't think we have that hardcore evidence. We have a number of research papers over the years that, you know, Mr. Prime has alluded to even throughout this show. But when it comes to current empirical data about whether or not we have the hearts and minds on board to, you know, implement a local government in Grenada, Carrick and Peter Martinique, I'm not sure we do. But so dare I say, the stakeholders that can assist us to get to a position of standing, what has to be welcomed, yeah, has to be welcomed. But then you have to look at membership of unions. You know, you take Peter Martinique by way of example. How many people in Peter Martinique? I know we have a smaller population, but how many of those people there are members of any union? So it's.
Well, I was not making it in that way. The point I'm making is that is it possible to reach a stage where communities look first and foremost, primarily at the community, what affects the community interests, notwithstanding the fact that there will be actors and participants from different political parties involved in each community. That's really the point. In the way that the trade unions, for example, have been able to achieve that.
Well, as I said, I think any stakeholder, any interest groups that, you know, can assist, then it has to be welcomed. Of course, it has to be welcomed. But you see, again, you know, there's no one answer to achieving the objective and getting stakeholders and the enablers. You know, it's the enablers. Who are the enablers getting to making this thing happen? That's the critical question. So if it's the trade union, if it's the church, if it's whoever, but who are the enablers that can, you know, to make a local governance across Grenada, Carrick and Peter Martinique implemented successfully?
George, let me ask you this. What in your view, what was the main reason why local government was abolished in Grenada?
But I would argue that from where I sit, it appears more to the issues that we are already spoken to. Central government actually felt that the local government structures will no doubt usurp some of their own powers and influences. In other, it is a usurpation in the views of the people at B at the time, saying, no, 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 this local guy is going to unseat us. And I mean, this is even more prominent than Don may be able to bear it all too. In the United Kingdom, notwithstanding the strength of local government, there is rapid clashes between local and central government when it comes to certain key issues. Literally thinking, well, these people are at war. I remember the ILA whole struggle with the education and how the conservatives were addressing the issue and what model schools should do. In other words, once the local input seems to be championing it, central government always find a way to, well, in a manner of speaking, put them on the manners to the extent where they may be saying, well, we have to disband them because they look as troublemakers. We in a nutshell were facing the same situation. You know the extent of the GULP and Uncle when he started to become prominent. Most of those guys in those times were seen as old GNP stalwarts. the guys who won the district votes, quite apart from the property relations. These are the men who were running the show. Uncle say, well, no, I can't stand up and have these fellas and them doing this thing now. And I mean, you know the class thing that came about, the 51 struggle and all of those events. I think those were the contributing factors to why it was disbanded.
Yeah, it's also the threat of losing control and power.
Yes.
At at central government. Let's face it, that's I don't think that's rocket science. That's that we know. But so the point is, so bearing in mind what we know, and that's not going to change. Even though we're speaking about local government now, I think that always there. So I think it's about, therefore, is it not? So what more local government is it that government do want? It doesn't have to be, of course, it doesn't have to be full delegation down, but it may be, going around the parameters, and I think the problem we have is that we speak about the election, but we've not really gone down, dare I say, the granular of what a government model is actually going to look like.
So let me just add,
Unfortunately,
sorry.
Until we get there, unfortunately, we're at the first hurdle.
Okay, Don Lincoln Deputy is saying, I understand what the learned lady is saying, but real life politics doesn't work the way she's articulated. Dave then says that we are now beginning to recognize the real issue, the political party. Political parties are not recognized in the Grenada Constitution. The concept of representation comes to the fore. Who is the party candidate represented in Parliament? The constituents or the political party? Lincoln Deputy says Trinidad and Guyana have a long history of local government. And local government is a battle between representatives of the main national parties of the two countries. Dave then says, simple answer, the politicians. I think that would have been the simple answer, so I'm not sure what.
Yeah, but I
Karen Layne says, Comrade Prime. you got it right. The question of power played a part. I think she's speaking about the breakup of the local government system. Lincoln Deputy says the petty bourgeois GMP control the local government and Okage recognized that they were going to use it to push back against the central government's rule.
But does it not go back to the point? I think they're all valid. Does it not go back to the point, therefore, then, is that what model, if any, of local government is it that, you know, the government of the day is prepared to implement? Whether it's at the political, the MP level, the representation level, whatever model. But what is it? Until, you know, we understand what the model looks like, as I said, you know, me and George and yourself will be here again. You know, your commentators, you know, those contributing will be asking the same question. We don't have all the answers. What we can do is bring our experience. You understand? Yes,
Okay.
but those challenges at the end of the day, you know, as much as are in some of those now, the reality is until we understand whether, you know, there is true commitment that will get us, you know, at least, you know, it moves in the right direction. Once we understand that there is true commitment, then I think we can drill down in regards to what the model is to look like.
Okay, what's about this idea? A community is made up of, in addition to households, you have different interests, different sectors. You have, of course, you have business, you have youth, you have workers, you have farmers in many places like in St. John's, you have fishermen, you have the religious community, you have sporting communities. What about a system which recognizes all of these sectors and provides for representation of all of these sectors on any district council? Rather than just a system where you have, in a sense, replicating the political process from the national level, replicating that in the village and in the communities.
Yes, and that is a good local government representative model. That again, and this is what I'm saying, that can be looked at in regards to achieving the objective. There's various models of local government. This is what we have to understand. So we have to really do some, undertake that baseline, undertake that research at that local level to get an understanding. And as I say, that dialogue at that local level to get an understanding about what is going to be best. In the same way, what is corrupt in one country or area is not necessarily corrupt in another. In the same way, the local government model in one, dare I say, country, village or jurisdiction, what might work in one, it's not necessarily going to work in another. It's the same. So we have to, drill down further.
George,
well, I think it's interesting. Yeah, I beg your pardon?
I was just asking for your comment on what was raised.
Yeah. I was about to say it's interesting that you put your finger on that particular issue, because what is the contemplated for what the model for Carriacou and Petit Martinique should look like is in direct relation to the issues that you're now raising. First of all, it is contemplated to divide up Carriacou into zones. Not all of the zones have the same assets. Not all of the zones have the same fishermen. Not all of the zones have the same teachers. Not all of the zones have the same resources. Not all of the zones have airports and all of the other things that the state will have. So precisely the point you just raised is what has been contemplated as far as the possible model is concerned. So, for example, if we look at zone 1 in the concept of that model. First of all, you look at the population of the zone.
And that's Karaku we're talking about, right?
I'm talking about Karaku. The
Yes.
same can be replicated in
Replicated
Grenada
around there.
in a similar manner.
Yeah.
In zone 1, you look at the villages that comprise the zone. So they put it in this, there are 11 villages that comprise in the Karaku concept zone 1. And you've clustered here polling division 1 and polling division 3. These two polling divisions comprise 11 villages: Petty Carronage, Jampier, Windward, Experiment, Bialo, Limle, Belvedere, Meldrum. So we bite off this as a particular zone. That zone has a population cumulatively of 713 persons. You know now that is zone 1. You go and you look to see what the assets of that zone is, what it is that makes this zone tick, and you do that in each and every one. And I always recall when we come to Petit Martinique. Petit Martinique, on the face of it, just by the way of the asset, have the most fishermen, not only in Karaku. They have over 180 fishermen by names and their boats that are already clear. If you're going to talking about now, how do you categorize this fishing community? What are the assets? Fishing is the number 1 revenue earner, not only for Karaku and Petit Martinique, in the entire state. So that when we're speaking about models, we're really looking at the same point you're making, Layne, that you need to be checking as to teachers in the community, fishermen in the community, workers in the community of some sort. And then you begin now to address those issues in population. What then does zone 1 want that zone 3 does not have? And you would not believe, I had made the point to the minister then that you see this burial issue of how you deal with the assets and how you do distribution. Let's now put local government in its proper context and start putting zones in place so that you can now do equitable distribution rather than talking from my heart what somebody come and ask me for. What this one? What does zone 1 want? How many houses were destroyed in zone 1? How many people who there have children that ain't going to school? How many tents were distributed in zone 1 as compared to zone 7? These are things that, if you like, fit neatly. Not all this long talk about who is politician and who is this. Yes, politics play a part. But when you come into people's needs, as they say, when Hurricane Beryl come in ask who was NNP and who was NDC, who was backup, you know. So when you're doing the presentation of these things, this is what is the hard, real facts that have to address our minds if we're speaking seriously about trying to build a better quality of life for people. I always used to say, every time I had this problem facing me, as it relates to the politics, I said, my rule in Karaku, all the time, I'm not Minister of NDC. I'm the Minister of Karaku and Diplomatic Affairs. So don't come and saddle me with blame all the time. I have to look after my people. Yes, they say you have to look after your people in your time. When the politics come in, and that is the point that I think that is the wider point. Are you looking for votes to get, the cutoff period is 5 years. You're not going to be concentrating and looking to solve people's needs as opposed to giving people things that they know they're going to vote for you. Am I going to tell me?
My battery's going to run out.
You gone? Are you we still see you.
Our battery is going to run off on it.
Yeah, so the zonal structure is, I think, is what is going to put this thing in its proper context. The issue of needs. In fact, I didn't want to go through all of the consultation that has taken place, Don, when you speak, because the historical background, which I had mentioned in some detail, I can say to you, you hearing me? Are you hearing me? Oh, she can't hear. I don't know.
I'll ask Bentley to assist. Bentley, can you just assist her, please? Yeah, procedure, Judge.
Yeah. Let
My
me
volume's
just
high.
let me just and I mean we may well have to implement some of this again. But I just to give, if you like,
Cannot hear.
almost a trajectory of the issues that were addressed. At September 10th, 2008 to October 8th, 2008, the first consultation phase with all of the polling divisions, which we then call the polling districts, or districts within the local government structure to come, were in this initiative. So everything that was said, the issue of the reintroduction of local government took place in the 11 polling districts. So I don't think you have to go and reinvent no wheel and say to the polling districts or the electoral districts or the district councils, if you want to start calling them that, that we want to start consultation again as to whether we should do local government. Those things were done. And that was the period, September to October. October 2008, they've had the first draft bill by Professor McIntosh that puts into perspective not only the Carrico and Pitty-Matnick model, but the model that he contemplates also that our government should be dealing with. January to March 2009, you had phase 2 of the consultation taking place in all of the districts again on the draft bill. I'm saying all of that to say that really, when we speak about what the next steps should be, when we speak about are we going to wait now, as the present administration is saying, let's now rewrite the bill again and go back to further consultations and meetings. I think that is a complete waste of time. There's no need for going and reinvent the wheel that they had set up long overdue. The zonal and village consultations continued. Carrico and Pitty-Matnick County Council had said that bill should have been passed. You had set up a development and communication plan to sensitize the population. All of that took place. Every school in Carrico had a debate. Secondary, primary, local government was all over the place. All them Calypsonians were singing local government. If you go around Carrico now, you will see the sign local government now. Well, they should burn them sign because that now meant 2008.
Yeah.
Now we're 12 years. So now to go and say that you want to revise and redraft and all we have to do is to get into the parliament and pass the bill, man.
Okay, George, I just want to take some comments again. John Kelly's is asking Dave if the non-mention of political parties, I think that's what he means, in the Constitution mean that political parties are illegal. And he asks, how else can the country be managed with the political party? What provision is there in the Constitution for good governance? That's a related but separate conversation. Alison Matlin, then what will be the role of the local government if there will be clashes with the government party or with the PM? Lindy Smith's Blessed Evening panel for another program. What would be the process to have the rental board constituted? I think that's another issue. There's a Rent Restriction Act passes early 1980s. And one of the provisions under the act was for the establishment of rental boards. I don't think that was ever done. So I suspect that's what she's raising there. Jara Rastafari wants to know, is the local government process the same as having a village chief? in the community, and somebody from St. John's says this. We had a district board which dealt with the work in the community, but I guess that was holistic. So the politicians removed the district board to hands-on, remove the district board, and establish a system whereby everything was passing through the party office. So the people will say that the MP did it for me. So that's so I don't know if because the time is running, if we just want to respond to those comments. Jarastafari is asking if the local government process is the same as having a village chief in the community. And again, the person from St. John's is making the point that, which I think we have been making all evening, that clash between central government, party in power, domain, and in conflict with the local government structures.
Well, I think what I would say in regards to Jarastafari is that local government is about, you know, as we've discussed today, taking the decisions from central government and down to our local communities, whether it be the village chief, whether it be your community representative, you know, within the zones, as Mr. Prime just spoke about, you know, it's a model that basically delegates down. Whether or not there's one chief, you know, again, as I mentioned, there's various models, but whether or not there's one chief, I don't really necessarily think that is the critical factor. The critical factor is about decision making at the local level. How do we achieve that, taking it away from central government? But yes, I suppose it can be compared to having a chiefdom kind of arrangement in a local village. In regards to the issues around the political side, I mean, we've discussed that here, and I think that is always going to be a challenge. That is always going to be a challenge. And as I said, you know, we've got to, you know, have some full and frank discussions about what that looks like politically, you know, if this is going to have any teeth.
Yeah, in my response, the issue of village chief, and I think I'm a little more advantageous in the sense that I am aware as to the draft bill that is to bring about the possible model as well as the functions of the council. If you look at what was contemplated for the composition of the council, that is the county council, this county council, if we look at the language that is used in that particular draft bill, should comprise about 15 members. First, there's no issue about village chief here. You have a chairperson of the council. Then you have the elected councillors, not appointed, elected councillors, one elected from each of the wards, if you want to call it ward, depending on what, each of the polling division, if you want to call it that, or each of the zones, if you want to call it that. Again, no chief is contemplated because you have to be elected.
Mm-hmm.
You must be elected from each of the 11 polling divisions. So let's say that is that. Concept 2, there will be 2 elected for Petit Martinique as opposed to 1 in relation to Carriacou, again, because Petit Martinique is treated as a separate zone. The member, and I remember this had caused some difficulty, the member of the House of Representatives elected to represent the constituency of Carriacou and Petit Martinique is also to be a member of this council, except that he would only be there in an ex officio capacity. I remember now they had a creature when the member of parliament. Huh?
If you're breaking down ex officio,
you can't vote on matters
No
that touch and concern the council. He doesn't have voting rights.
Okay.
You can go and vote and say you want to this happen and I want to send $12,000 to a friend in Pitimatni. He doesn't have those rights. You know, he's not entitled to the vote on any matter to be determined by the council. So the issue of village chief would not be contemplated in the model of local government that is already been drafted in some form. It may change, but I'm saying what is contemplated here is an independent body, and more importantly, the Act contemplates to answer the question between government. There are a provision in Part 2 of the Act which speaks to the liaison between the council and central government. What must be the conduct that should take place between the central government and local government? There ought not to be any conflict. Whether conflict arises by virtue of human existence is another matter.
We have to be real. We have to be real.
The law does not contemplate. In fact, here what Part 5 and 6 of that legislation speaks to. And I'm just only sharing with you just for the purposes of clarity as my friend has raised it. Yeah? The functions of and powers of the council. This law contemplates, if you like, 14 functions that the council should be involved in. Improvement, maintain roads together with central bank. Regulate and provide protection and supply of certain communications. Promote and regulate hotel and tourism development. Administer, regulate, and monitor the agricultural, forestry, fishery services, and the marine resources. Administer public health, sanitation services, environmental services. Maintain shared responsibility and public health with the government. Provide and maintain social services. Maintain the clinics, Pitimatnik jetties, harbors. Administer, coordinate, regulate cultural and sporting events. Just to give an indication of some of the things that are contemplated, which does not conflict with that of central government. In fact, this also contemplates whether we have to change anything. The council must have its own police unit. The council may establish a police unit to serve the county and to be recalled the Carriacou and Pitimatnik County Police Unit. Quite apart from we have royal members of the Grenada Police Force, which is the central command and central. What is contemplated in Carriacou by virtue of the separation is not keep sending men from Grenada and shuttling them up and down every time you have an emergency. But it is contemplated that you should have your own unit in Carriacou and Pitimatnik for that purpose. The council to have the powers as is set out in district council. Markets, financial provisions. So it is not only the central government. The council may raise ordinary revenue for the following sources: wharf and harbor dues, public utilities, rents, dues, fees, tollages, and other charges made by the council for the use of its own existence. The government may allocate a portion of its annual revenue to the council as part of the ordinary revenue for the council. Such allocation being fair and reasonable, and may specify what part of such allocation shall be made available to the zonal council after, and so on. So I've just given you some applicability of what this thing is. I had indicated in Part 6, just to give you an indication what is contemplated here. The liaison between the council and government should start off in what is called a standing coordinating forum. What does that mean? There shall be a coordinating forum comprising 5 members of the council and 5 members of the government. So the balance. Or such other equal members represented from both sides as agreed between the council and the government. The council shall choose its 5 members of the forum, and the minister shall choose the 5 members of the government for the forum. The standing coordinating forum shall also comprise the minister as well as members of the House of Representatives elected to represent the constituency of Carriacou and Pitimatnik. Crucial, the chairperson of that standing forum not no chief again, but it's constituted in accordance with what the district councils and so on must be. The chairperson of the forum shall preside at meetings when the forum. If there is no chairperson, then you have a deputy chairperson. So I see all of that to say that what really is contemplated is not the kind of confusion that some of our persons may be saying. It is expected that you have a machinery. That machinery will go down to the places, discuss among the members, you elect them, and like everything else, you're going to have your ups and downs. You just start, we're starting somewhere. It is not going to be perfect.
And of course, the hope is with time, as these systems mature, they will more and more focus on their communities.
Precisely.
To be fair, I understood Jarastafari in a sense when he said local government process is the same as having a village chief in the community. In terms of the language, I saw the focus on
right
village. In other words, village and community. In other words, that's what you're looking at, rather than the NNP person or the NBC person.
Naturally. Naturally.
The PNM person in Trinidad or the UNC person. Basically, somebody who is looking at the interests of the community and the village. But I think, George, what you're saying there is that we should start that process. It will mature over time. You can always
tweak, cut and change,
make adjustments, tinker with it, as the case may be, as massage it.
We have to start from somewhere. We have to start
somewhere.
But that is the point. That is exactly the point.
But I think all the concerns about the party politics is a real concern. And before we end, I just want to read some of the comments here again, which go back to that. Cyrus Griffith, in small countries like ours, don't you think that local government will take away some of the power and influence from the ministers of the main government? I think we went through that for the night.
Yes.
Martin Felix says, Lincoln Deputy, maybe part of our task is to seek to determine whether there is something flawed about local government per se, or whether there are some limitations in the Guyana and Trinidad models. Dave then says, the Constitution does not contemplate an entity between the constituents and the representative in Parliament. The political party handpicks the representative and presents the person to the constituents. It is supposed to be the constituents who choose their representative. There is no constitutional responsibility for the political party. We have been socialized against the concept of the political party as part of our colonial past, where we are leaders, we are independent and free, and our free will. Lincoln Deputy says, Martin Felix, Comrade Martin, there is an intrinsic flaw called party politics. There is no one who is not aligned at the local level, in big cities and towns, and especially in small cities and towns. At the local level, people too often bring their party alignment to local government work. Before I invite final comments, I just want to again recognize the sponsors of this program, Gel Professional Solutions. GEM FM carried the program out of Canada, and we want to thank Brother Kelly, who was posted here. He's the person behind that. And also Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, GTAL.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
Okay, Sister Dawn, do you go first? I invite final comments.
Well, what I would say, thank you again for inviting me on and to participate. As I said at the beginning, we have been speaking about this for some time. Mr. Prime highlighted his involvement in this over the years in his respective role as senator, and basically championed the cause and for years and decades, and yet we are still here. So my thing is this: look, we really do need to move forward. There is a model, there's a contemplated model, yes. Is that model workable? That's what we need to find out. So let's start engaging meaningfully, simultaneously, to getting this bill through so that we can really take this to the next level in the event that there is commitment, which I do believe there is. So I do look forward to the next stage, over the next few weeks, months and years as we, look to implement this for the betterment of, all citizens across Grenada, Carrier, Crew and Petite Martinique at that local level.
George?
Yeah, I want to also conclude, first of all, by finally expressing my sincere thanks to Legalize. I don't know any other way to say that. I'm grateful for you affording us the opportunity this evening to address this very important subject. I can only hope and pray that we both, Don and myself, had done, precedent and justice to the cause this evening. More importantly, I want to make the point that this issue of local government and together constitutional reform is really a product of many brains and diverse energies and experiences. I personally, as it relates to local government in particular, want to express publicly a profound debt of gratitude to Dr. Alexis, who really has been to us in the local government field that of guidance and supervision, certainly from a clinical point of view. I mean, it happened to me that we become friends, but equally he was the guiding wisdom in this. I want to commend him. And certainly to express finally that we trust that this evening's program and those that are to come would find some interest, not only in the constitutional reform exercise, but that local government is not only, as my friend had pointed out, that we need a new pathway if we are to transform we need a constitution. I want to say, borrow that pathway, that we also need a new pathway if we are really to change the lives of our ordinary citizens. And as these topics has aroused me, I hope it would arouse other citizens and members of our community to push these processes forward. Thank you so much.
Yes, so thank you very, very much. And for my part, it's clear that there is a thirst for people to participate in the processes of government. Something that may appear quite simple, but there are these calling programs all over the country, all hours of the day. And you often hear people address local issues in those using those avenues. And sometimes you get the impression that people are willing to do things, but how things are at present, they they are led to believe or believe that you have to appeal to the central government or to a minister, to the political representative to solve a problem which is really a local problem. Maybe a road, a bridge, the things you mentioned, George, in terms of the functions which are envisaged for the local government. So I want to thank you, Don, and I want to thank you, George, for appearing tonight. I want to thank all those who have been following the program. Next Sunday we should have another exciting program. Jamaicans have come up with a tactic to continue to pursue the reparations issue, and they have received the endorsement of all the other CARICOM governments on that. And next week, I'm hoping to have one of the architects of this, to use a word from Brother Prime, this new pathway to reparations. I hope to have one of the architects of that on this program, and I really look forward to hearing what he has to say and following him, because I have been very strong that in addition to all the advocacy work and everything else that we do, we need to find a way to use the legal system, the legal machinery to force the point. And the Jamaicans think that they have come up with something as some of the program may not like to hear this, but the Jamaicans are saying that they have basically set a trap for the king. That's what is said. See you next week. Thank you, everyone. A good night. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Okay, good night. Bye-bye.